Welcome to another Photo Mishmash. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 24.
We got wood.
That wood.
That wood. I teased this on Instagram the other day. I had a local handyman / woodworker whip this up as just kind of a rustic backdrop to use in some videos and in the podcast. You know, we had comments from a couple people that they love the outdoor location. Will we be shooting there again?
Yes, but we can't shoot there all the time because it rains and it's sunny and it's buggy, and so...
What if we put up a big tarp? One of those nice white tarps. We could live under. We could live in the backyard.
You could live in the backyard.
And then we could have all of the space in the house for photography stuff. That makes sense. What are we talking about this week?
Well, let's get started with the week in review.
Let's get started with the week in review.
You reviewed the 10 to 18 this week, is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Oh.
I reviewed it
all right.
last week.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, that's right. You asked a question.
Nope.
No, okay. Maybe you should be a little bit more specific in your little notes.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about that stuff first. I compared the 10 to 18 versus the Tokina 11 to 16 f2.8 and the Canon 10 to 22 f3.5 f4.5.
Okay.
And was really happy with the way the Canon did because I basically in my review said this is a great lens, 299, nice wide angle. Yes, it's a little slow aperture-wise, f4.5 maximum aperture, but again, 299, very good quality. A lot of people want to know, how did it stack up against the others? Tokina 11 to 16 f2.8 has been my pick for a very long time as the wide-angle lens to get. Offers that constant f2.8 aperture. And the Canon did very well. A question I've been getting from a lot of people, though, is the image stabilization that the 10 to 18 has, does that make up for starting at a slow f4.5 aperture versus the Tokina offering f2.8? I mean, that's a big difference in stops, f2.8 to f4.5. And remember, each stop is a doubling of light. It's a big difference.
Yep. I don't really have any thoughts on it.
Which one would you go for?
I don't know. I feel like I would have to kind of play around with them. I did not get to play around with either of them.
No. The answer is, for some of your work, image stabilization absolutely can make up for the difference. And I also get asked specifically for video work, is that f4.5 an issue? Remember, at video, you can shoot at that 1/50th of a second. You can actually even go down to 1/40th or 1/30th if it's on a tripod or you're being smooth in your movements. Because that slight blurriness in video translates to just kind of smooth, filmy look. And so you can. I think it's actually more of an issue for shooting, but it depends on what you're shooting. Static subjects, the image stabilization absolutely lets you get to those slow shutter speeds. So, yes, for the most part, that image stabilization does make up for the lack of wide aperture.
Great.
Plus, it's just such a light little lens. One of the things that I thought I was going to, I wanted to share real quick is I used Google Shortener on the post that links to the 3 different lenses. And I was curious to see, so we've got the Tokina, the Canon 10 to 18, and the Canon 10 to 22. Canon 10 to 22 is kind of left out in the cold. It's like, it doesn't really offer anything that the Tokina didn't and that the 10 to 18 doesn't, and it's pricey. So 99 people clicked through to see more about the 10 to 18. 59 people clicked through to see more about the 10 to 22. And 70 people clicked through to see the Tokina.
Wow.
Yeah. I was going to try to put that into percentages because it's almost at 100%. And that was from 2 days ago. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
All right. Well, you got a really exciting item in the mail. Not today, but...
I did.
This week.
This week, yesterday.
Yeah.
My 50 f1.4 arrived, and I'm looking at camera 2, which is the 70D, using it to film right now. So this is the Sigma Art Series 51.4. we're excited to get this in.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm excited to see how it stacks up against the 51-2 from Canon.
Yep.
I've had that lens for a very long time. Well, not a very long time, but maybe
About
like
2 years,
year, 2 years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
And Canon doesn't seem to have any plans to put out anything else anytime soon. I mean, there's been rumors, but not anything that leads me to believe that there's an update coming anytime soon. So, and there's been so many great reviews about the 50-1.4 from Sigma, and I have the 35-1.4 from Sigma, and I love that lens. It's amazing. So, yeah, so I'll be really interested to see how it stacks up.
Build quality, beautiful.
Yeah,
you know, this is
solid.
This almost sounds a little braggy, but I'm a little geared out as far as, you know, it arrived yesterday in the middle of the day, and I actually have only taken 2 pictures with it right before I put it on the camera to start this video with. It's like, I was super excited about this. It's been back ordered forever. Finally got my hands on it. And I was busy yesterday doing this, doing that, returning stuff. Had to return a Lexar card. Well, maybe I'll talk more about that in a second. And I just hadn't had a chance. It feels naughty.
I wouldn't call it naughty, but yeah, I mean, I do definitely feel a little bit burned out from, like, you know.
Just being near me?
No, I was going to say just from shooting in general. I mean, not really burned out, but it is that time in the season where things are feeling a little bit busy. Maybe.
It's not what you were saying a few minutes ago.
Maybe a lot busy. And what I was saying a few minutes ago is that I was really overwhelmed with so much work, but that I have to do. But
yeah, you take time out of your schedule to join me.
Yes.
Thank you.
I do. So, yeah, so we haven't really had a lot of time to play with it, but we are very excited about it, even if we are just taking maybe not a break, but just, you know, we're waiting on. We'll definitely get to use it a lot this wedding, this upcoming weekend.
Is it a long wedding? Do you have the schedule yet?
Is it a long wedding? They're all long weddings. What kind of question is that?
Well, that reminds me, last week was fairly long wedding.
Yeah.
And we decided to stick around for the sparkler exit.
Oh, yeah.
This is kind of a funny story, kind of sad story.
It's not sad. It's not sad.
Ryan got burnt. So sparkler exits right now
Spoiler alert. Now we all know what
are pretty popular. And that is where everybody gets a nice little sparkler and they stand outside and make a little line or a tunnel of sparklers, and the couple comes out at the end. Last year it happened a couple of times.
Yeah, I feel like in Vermont that trend has really picked up this year because everybody's doing it.
And I feel like the people are getting smarter about what sparklers are buying, because last year they would buy these short ones, and you know, by this time in the night, if it's been an open bar, there's been a good bit of drinking. People aren't always following directions, and even if they aren't drinking, they're talking to their buddy and they're so excited, and so to organize, and we don't usually do any of the organizing. We let the other people do that, and so it takes forever. And I remember last year, I think, you know, like 20% of the sparklers were still lit by the time one of the couples came out. This year, people seem to have gotten their hands on these 4-minute sparklers. 4 minutes. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like 15 seconds was like, oh, it's off. Can I get another one?
Yeah.
And now these are huge. And we had the brother of the groom and...
Of the bride.
Of the bride, I'm sorry. Of the bride. And somebody else were doing an amazing job of organizing, getting everybody in the line, saying we're gonna light these. And there was a fire, they had done a fire pit outside. And they went to light them in the fire pit. Can I show this little series of pictures?
All at once.
As we talk about it?
Yeah, as long as there aren't people's faces in them.
Yeah, not really people's faces in them.
Okay.
And so the plan was to hold the bundle of sparklers, put it into the fire, and I was pretty close because I was at the end where they were starting this lighting, and wow, that's not a good idea, folks. Turns out that that's not a good way. There was some maybe concern that the sparklers actually were faulty. I don't know if that was the case or not. But either way, I wouldn't recommend, now that I've seen this, not recommend.
I mean, who would have thought, right? It's not like they like don't do that because you know what's going to happen. Like, I wouldn't have thought that that would have happened.
Right. As you can see from the pictures, here's what happened. They instantly lighted.
Lit, yeah, and then burned up.
The whole thing. So these people were holding like 40, 50 giant 4-minute sparklers in their hands that suddenly went whoosh.
So the 4-minute sparklers actually lasted maybe like 15 seconds.
Whoosh.
Yeah, it was. And
I don't even think it was 15 seconds. Yeah, they had to drop them.
It was really hot.
Ryan, he got burnt on his hands.
Yeah. Second and third degree burns.
Yeah, second, third degree
Poor
burns.
guy.
I mean, he was, he didn't have to be rushed off to the hospital in an ambulance or anything, but
he was badly hurt. Yeah.
What was my point of that story?
I don't know.
Oh, I think I just wanted to share it.
Don't light a bunch of sparklers all at once in a fire pit.
Yep.
Just don't.
Yep.
Anyway.
Okay.
So we were talking about
well, that was ironic, is we had decided, we were talking about length of the wedding. We decided we were going to, we weren't really scheduled to stay for them, but it's kind of a nice thing to say, we'll stay and we'll catch this. And ironically, we stayed and did not catch this because it didn't happen.
Right.
And on the way home, we almost hit a moose.
Oh yeah, that was very exciting.
Just stepped right out in the road in front of us, and I think it was Ruby who said pictures or it didn't happen. And you had I'm full on blame right here, hitting you with it. You had 2 cameras on your lap.
Look, my brain is like jello by the end of my wedding day. And I was trying to transfer pictures, like all of the leftover energy and brain ability was like focused on trying to transfer like 2 pictures from a camera to my phone. So like I wasn't even that shocked that we were about to hit a moose. Like, I was a little bit, like, taken aback, but, like, normally I would, when things like that, I would, like, squeal or scream. Right. I didn't have the energy for that. You didn't have
energy to squeal or scream. No. We've been using the 70D, to bring this back to something useful for you all, we've been using the 70D to wirelessly transfer pictures from the 5D Mark III. How do we do that, you say? Well, we take the SD card out of the 5D Mark III, put it in the 70D, and it happily transfers over. And that was one of the things that I really liked about the GH4. It didn't care what pictures were, because every once in a while, I always recommend formatting a card before you put a card in a camera, format it in that camera to use it every time. I don't always do that though. I say you should, but I don't always do that when I'm testing cameras and throwing things around. The Sony a6000 often would be like, oh, I can't do anything with this card until you format it. And I have to create an image database. That was one of the annoying things about the a6000. And I saw it more than a couple times give me errors. But overall, still really like that camera. The GH4, put a 5D Mark III card in, put a 70 card that came out of the 70D, and it would show you the images. Wouldn't even like here they are. Want to wirelessly transfer these? You bet. I thought that was cool. So anyway, we've been moving the card over to the 70D so we can wirelessly transfer and share pictures a little bit more. We're going to try to Instagram for our couples a little bit more often because so many people at the wedding are doing that, and it's neat to get out there during the wedding a professional shot or 2. She doesn't feel as strongly about it as I do. I just think it's neat to be able to use the technology. Yeah.
Okay. News.
What do we got for news?
Well, first,
whoopsie,
somebody left their phone on.
Newsflash! Christina left her phone on.
It's not my phone.
Mm-hmm.
The D810.
D810, yeah, the D810. Announced. 3:01 a.m. this morning. You are watching it, so Thursday morning. 36 megapixel sensor. Same megapixels as the D800, but it is supposed to be a new design. No optical low-pass filter. So that, I think, what is that? That is, in simple terms, a bit of blurriness between the sensor and the world to keep things like moire down. That is that.
It's moire.
Moire, you're right. Moire. M-O-I-R. Accent grave on the E. Is it accent grave or accent
I'm not certain that that's how it is, but it's just basically the excessive detail of patterns,
yes,
like fabrics or just like repetitive, very repetitive
You-
patterns. That can be really distracting.
And screens and brickwork, tile roofs, shirts, certain shirts,
Like stripes
with
on a
fine
shirt.
with fine repeating. Yeah, you get this kind of crazy optical, almost I call it an optical illusion.
It is. That's what it is.
And typically, you put this little blurriness there to keep that from happening. But a lot of camera manufacturers have figured out how to do it in software. And Nikon especially has started to remove the optical low-pass filter. They did it there are two versions of the D800. D800 and D800E. And the E had known. But they've since taken out of the D5300, the D7100, I think, does not have it. I think so.
I think that what they said was that it was best for landscape photography because you really want to pick up on as much detail as possible.
And you're unlikely to run into a situation where there's as finely repeating pattern in nature as you would get that would cause this.
Right.
But Nikon has been gangbusters on figuring out how to get rid of this in all the cameras, as I just said. And so here it is, the D810. There's no D810E and D810. There's just the D810, and it doesn't have this optical low-pass filter, which means that you should get very, very good detail out of this camera. And the D800E, I mean, we know John Willis sold all of his medium format gear and went D800E, and is very happy. So he stepped down in sensor sizes because he wanted to be able to carry less gear, like a lot of people who are switching from DSLR to mirrorless, but this guy went from medium format to DSLR, and he was quite happy. Yeah. So really nice. No real big 3.2-inch LCD monitor, no 4K, so I think that is interesting. This D800 is kind of the competitor to the 5D Mark III, and we were wondering if the 5D Mark IV will have 4K or if the 7D Mark II will have 4K.
I feel like with the sensor size, it would be really difficult to do 4K, wouldn't it?
Why?
Well,
I think you're thinking backwards.
No, I see what you're saying, but wouldn't it just cause these memory cards to just completely melt? Like, the memory cards just cannot keep up with that.
They're going to read off how most of these cameras work is they read off a section of the sensor. They don't read off the full sensor.
Oh, so then that makes even more sense then, because then you're not using the whole sensor, so what's the point? So if they don't feel like... what I'm trying to say is that it would make more sense for them to introduce that into a model like the 7D Mark II, as opposed to a full-frame camera, because they're not going to be using the whole sensor, whereas in the 7D Mark II they might.
No, because it's still an APS-C sensor is still
too
larger than a 4K readout.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I mean, even the GH4 sensor, a 4/3 sensor, is larger than a 4K readout.
Yeah.
It only takes for part of it and it crops in.
Well, what's exciting about this camera?
Well, just it's the next big, that tier from Nikon, and it's a nice step forward. Nothing amazingly exciting. Graphite, newly designed graphite shutter that said it's even faster and more reliable.
You know what's kind of exciting about this for me is that it probably means that Canon's coming out with their 5D Mark IV pretty soon.
Well, that's what I wanted to say. We've heard just the beginning of rumors as a Northlight Imaging, which is kind of a Canon rumor, and let's cover some Nikon rumor stuff.
But they said that towards the end or fall there would be an announcement, I think.
Yep.
I think I saw that somewhere.
That we should see early fall, maybe announcement about the replacement to the 1DX, and then not too long after that, or very early in the next year, the 5D Mark III replacement, which would probably be the 5D Mark IV.
That seems really fast. I feel like they usually take way longer to roll these updates out. I'm not complaining because I'm dying to replace my 5D Mark II. God, I can't stand focusing with that thing.
The Mark II.
Yeah, it's just so slow to focus.
It produces beautiful images, but it is slow to focus.
For weddings and having...
And so you're saying you're going to move up to the 5D Mark IV and then keep your second camera as 5D Mark III.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to do that.
I was looking for the timeline here because it came out in, 2012? Spring, I believe. It was released March 2012. And so if we're talking about...
That's 3 years.
Yeah. That's not that short. What was the, how long was the Mark II around for?
I thought...
Mark II came out on 2008. 4 years.
Yeah,
September.
What
Well,
about
September.
the
3.5. 3.5.
Okay.
Not that long.
That seems appropriate. Anyway, so anything else we want to say about the A10?
No, one of the other interesting things, though, is it's being sold with a filmmaker kit, which you buy the camera, you get a 35 prime, 50 prime, 85 prime. You get an Atomos Ninja video recorder. That is basically it's basically a hard drive in a box that plugs into the HDMI port on the camera and slurps the video right out from there. So you're not recording to cards. Gives you much longer recording length because you aren't actually, I think that works. You aren't actually recording
to a memory card, yeah.
To the memory card, and it's more reliable. So.
And faster speeds, right?
Faster speeds.
And so will we see you
comes
review this when it comes out?
You know, I don't know if B&H will hand off a D810 to me or not, but I'll see.
Seems modest.
I'll see. It'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Certainly the Canon side, because we'll be buying that for our work. Yeah. I was going to say one other thing about it. No, I think that's it. Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
What's next? Oh, I did want to say about the Lexar. I mentioned sending a Lex card back for warranty repair. I had at this last wedding. This is why we've stressed this before, shooting backups. And the 5D Mark III is really nice because it has dual card slots and allows you to shoot compact flash and SD cards. And my big 64 gigabyte Lexar card had issues, and I saw hints of this prior, but I hadn't nailed it down to that it was only this card doing it, and now I realize it was this card, and it got serious at this wedding. 1 out of every 30 or 40 shots was corrupted. You can see a couple examples here of what they looked like.
And initially you thought it was the camera because you sent it into Canon to be repaired.
Oh, well, no, that was the compact flash pins.
No. That was, remember you sent your camera to Canon because it had those pink bands on it and you thought it was the camera recording those images that way. But I think it may have been the card. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the card. So I've sent my camera into Canon twice?
Just once.
Okay, then. Okay. I sent it in because the pins were bent.
So yeah, you've sent it twice then.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I don't remember sending it a second time.
Yeah, I remember.
Huh. Okay. One of the nice things about when you send your camera in for repair is they clean it. It comes back all nice and clean. I also have gotten a lot of questions about whether or not I've sent the 70D in a second time. I haven't, and I want to, and I think I will in the next week or so because we're going to be doing some traveling, and the 70D will probably be left behind, and I'll have some time to send it in.
Yeah.
So, good. What other news do we have?
So there's a Pop Photo article talking about well, the title of the article is very scandalous. Oh, it's not scandalous.
Scandalous.
It's very eye-catching, if you will. Photography is killing you. Health tips for photographers. So it's no secret that camera gear is pretty heavy.
Can get heavy.
It can get heavy.
One of the reasons I think mirrorless are very popular to people right now.
It's very heavy. So basically talking about the potential for injury when you don't take care of yourself as a photographer and you, carry all of your gear in backpacks, cough, cough, and, carry too much stuff on one shoulder, so like imbalance of, weight just on one side. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily news. Like we've all known that.
Well, I think one of the most interesting things out of this it's not a very long article. I think one of the most interesting things is the battery grip discussion, though, because I have recently bought a battery grip. I went with a third-party battery grip for the 5D Mark III, not for the extra battery life. I almost feel like I said this exact same thing last week.
You probably did.
But because it makes it so much easier to shoot portrait. It's not awkward. Your hand isn't back around here when you're shooting portrait, and it becomes much more natural feeling. Christina wanted me to shoot more portraits during weddings, and it has certainly helped, and it's felt better about that. One thing to watch out for those third-party battery grips is make sure that that tripod plate underneath there inside is
Well, we don't
sturdy.
know for sure that there are any that don't have a sturdy plate.
That's
you
true.
just thought for a second that yours didn't, and so...
In a certain light, mine looked like really crummy, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm carrying this thing around because I use a rapid strap or it's hooked to my waist belt, and so there was a lot of stress put on that tripod socket, and I had this epiphany that a third-party battery grip may not have as robust tripod socket. Well, it certainly doesn't as the camera itself, because the camera, it's integrated into that magnesium body with a lot of cameras, or you know, polycarbonate plastic that's, again, integrated, big piece, so it's not going to like just pop off. And so I had this thought, and I looked at it during the wedding, I think it must have been. And so maybe my brain was jelly too. And I thought, oh my God, there's just this one tiny piece of metal in there. And I ran over and looked at Christina's legitimate one, 350 versus 80. And hers looked much more robust. And then the other day, I picked it up, and there's a complete metal plate across the bottom. Yeah. And the brand is Velo. I bought it off Amazon. If I can remember, I'll put a link to it down below. But I've typically recommended third-party battery grips as a nice way to save money. Buttons, you say the shutter button doesn't feel as good.
Yeah, but that's a minor thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a minor thing, but you know, it might bother some people, so it's something to be worth aware of. But I think it's a, you know, $200 and some odd savings.
Oh yeah, totally. You
could buy a prime lens for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of that, somebody asked me the other day. They saw the 51.8, they saw the 51.4, and they said, well, there's a huge price difference between these two lenses that are the same focal length. And I said, heck, look at the 51.2. How much is the 51.2? 1,200?
1,250.
1,250, yeah. And that's the other reason why the Sigma is really exciting, because it's supposed to be sharper than the 51.2, but
also less
cheaper.
Expensive.
So it all has to do with aperture, folks. I think many of you watching this know that.
So this article, yeah. So, well, another thing that kind of caught my eye was just how much so many working photographers take the time to like go to the chiropractor, get acupuncture, and do things like that, which I think, like, I started going to a massage therapist about once a month last year, which feels like a really luxurious thing to do. Like, I feel like this isn't right. But honestly, it has made such a huge difference on my back. Like, every week after a wedding, like even right now, when was the last time I went? Like maybe 2 weeks ago, and my back is just shot. It's like my neck's feeling really tight and my back's feeling all tweaky and weird, and I have to like keep stretching and like, yeah, it just doesn't feel great. Well, so I feel like going to a massage therapist like really, really helps. I feel a difference right away.
Did they recommend that in this article?
No, they did chiropractor, but I'm a little bit scared about chiropractor ever since I heard.
Any of you out there go to chiropractors? I'm scared of them too.
Yeah, I just feel, I don't know. I think from like that one fender bender that I had, I may have gotten a little bit of whiplash because my neck feels weirdly tweaky, but I'm still just like kind of freaked out about them. Anyway, okay, so we've talked enough about this. Take care of yourself if you're shooting a lot.
Right, a battery grip can help. A good bag, you know, a good bag for many reasons. We've talked about this before, but trying to cram your gear in a bag that isn't made for it, or carrying around a lot of heavy gear in a bag that's not made for carrying around a lot of heavy gear, it's going to wear you down.
Oops. And then the other thing that article talked about was not just the type of bag, but also how you wear the bag, and making sure that it's not like hanging like down at your butt, but it's actually like right up, but you know, it shouldn't be on your low back. It should be up above so that your shoulder blades and your shoulders are actually supporting it versus your back. Because your back, there's a lot more potential for injury if you don't take care of your back. So, yeah, so just be careful.
Yep. And I think you said cough, cough, everybody. I like my backpack. A lot of Vermont weddings, we're walking over fields and all kinds of stuff, and your rolly bag when you leave it behind, and then it's my job to go fetch it.
I could not, well, yeah, I know. But would you be able to, would you rather like grab my roller bag or another backpack?
I would like your rolly bag to have straps.
So that you can wear your backpack in my backpack?
Oh, well, we'll figure that out
anyway.
Time. But I think it could be, it'd be nice.
Well, I just like it because I don't have to put it on my back. And
yeah, it does roll very nice over most terrain. We both use Think Tank bags. We love them. Good folks. And they have a test drive program right now with most of their gear. I don't know if it extends to their really high-end rolly bags, and they just announced their four-wheeled rolly bag if you spend a lot of time in airports or studio areas where you can roll smoothly, not like Vermont fields. It'd be worth checking out.
Yep.
I also think, wrap up this health discussion, photographers should have a double whammy, professional or otherwise, because you're out in the field shooting, awkward, carrying a lot of gear, you come home, you slump down in front of the computer.
Oh, that too. Yeah, honestly.
This article didn't address that at all, did it?
No, it didn't. But another thing that it did suggest was just like exercise. So I think strengthening your muscles in some other way, like going to an exercise class, lifting weights in a healthy way. And
curling with your lens, not the 10 to 18 though. Use the 70 to 200, which is out of reach.
Yeah.
It's a 3-pound lens.
Yeah, so just strength training and making sure that your body is in good shape, not like visually and aesthetically, but like in terms of you being strong enough to be able to keep up with all the different kinds of challenges, I think is really important. So, yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the next article.
Yep. Unle Bob.
Yeah, so NPR actually is doing a series on lingo from different industries. And the first one that they have come up with, and I actually saw a post on Facebook that they posted asking for other people's kind of lingo, and they mentioned the Unle Bob, which is really funny because if you're in the wedding industry and you're a wedding photographer, you've heard that term so many times, and it's everybody knows what it means. So it's just really funny. They interviewed a photographer. Her name is Amy Wardock, and I don't know, it was very humorous. I would go listen to the little story.
Do we want to talk about who Unle Bob is?
Well, yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, I just assume that everybody knows who Unle Bob is. Now that it's on NPR, everybody must. So Unle Bob is basically the term used for any guest at a wedding that has lots of really nice photography gear and will like oftentimes get in the way of the hired photographer to try to get the shot. So I feel like, there's one or two at every wedding that we shoot, usually. Somebody with like big old camera around their neck.
Or not even, just, we've had people with literally the little disposable cameras. I'm not making fun of them, but little disposable cameras getting in the way. And it's a little frustrating because we're like, really, what kind of shot are you about to get with that?
That's just, I don't want to say rude, but maybe what's the word for somebody who like...
Why is that any more or less rude than somebody with a bigger camera?
Not self-aware.
Well, yeah.
It's well, I don't think we're talking about rudeness because I don't think that they realize they're being rude, or maybe some of them do. I don't know. But I think that the Unle Bob specifically refers to the people with the big DSLRs who are trying to like get the shot for the couple or the family. I don't really know what their goal is, but anyway, yeah. So.
I also wanted to bring this up because I think there's this trend lately that we're seeing more of that I really appreciate, of the couple asking during the ceremony for everybody to put all of their cameras and their cell phones away.
Yeah, we've talked about this on the podcast before.
Okay. So I just like it. And I also just want to kind of filter it out there. If you know somebody getting weddings, suggest to it. Because not to make us happy as photographers, but seriously, we watch all of these people. They try to take, and then they're down looking at their phone, trying to figure out what to do next, and they're missing this moment.
Yeah, and this is coming from the guy who's like practically married to his phone.
I wish I had better battery life. I was going to make some comments about that. Okay.
So yeah, so it is nice that they ask people to put away their phones and cameras, because it is. I mean, you shouldn't police how everybody experiences things, but I do think that there's this like great focus on like getting that image when you have like 150 pictures of the same thing, and their pictures are most likely all crap because usually the situation is like heavily backlit or like super contrasty, and so is it really like, how many times what are you gonna do with that photo? It's just, anyway.
Yep.
That might seem really arrogant, but
yeah, it's not,
and in many cases I think
it brings up that bigger question of the Grand Canyon. Let's say we're gonna go visit at the Grand Canyon.
Right.
We gonna take any pictures there?
You know, I feel like I've been taking the stance of like I'm just gonna experience things and not, because there are millions of pictures of the Grand Canyon, and unless I see something that's like really, really unique that, you know, I want to specifically remember, or if it's a picture of you standing in front of the Grand Canyon, that's different than like just a picture.
Better or worse?
It's better.
Oh, good.
Because then it's this person, like it's like proof that you were at the Grand Canyon, which you need to, I don't know. Anyway. But yeah, I think I think I'm not going to. Well, so I don't know if we should talk about this, but we're going to Italy in the fall.
The trip
is really exciting.
with David McKay in Italy looks like it's going to happen. We are super excited.
So I will definitely take pictures there, and if I still have my medium format camera, which I've like been talking about selling for the last year and a half.
Your medium format film camera.
Yeah, my medium format film camera. I probably will want to take lots of pictures with it.
Gosh.
So.
I groaned because who's going to carry it? I'm going to carry it.
What?
Do we have that picture of me on the pier in California? I've got the medium format hanging around one. It's heavy.
Whatever.
I've got the 5D Mark III around the other.
Whatever. You were not.
I was not what? Carrying
You were
it?
not carrying all my stuff. Anyway, okay. What are you doing?
I'm just smiling. I'm just waiting for you to like move us along.
Okay.
Is that it?
Moving on. Yes, that is it for the new segment.
Let's make that a question. You know, I think that microphone might be picking that noise up. How do you feel about going to a location like the Grand Canyon where literally millions of pictures have been taken, literally tens of hundreds of thousands of pictures are on Flickr, and taking a picture? I want to hear your thoughts on that. I think I know what they are because you're watching this photography podcast on how to be a better photographer. Well, we're not really giving you much tips right now, but this channel. And I like your point about a person in it. That makes it like more of a yes thing to you, but you hesitate a little bit to just take another picture. I don't. I love, because I want to make a picture.
But that picture's already been made before.
Not by me.
So? But it's not like you're bringing anything to the table that's new or fresh or anything. Like it's...
I might be.
In some circumstances.
And that, gosh, you're so good. And that might be is enough for me to say. Now, I do agree that there are times where you have to be careful to not step back, put the camera down, and let's say, you know, this is beautiful. I went out early last week that morning to shoot with the GH4 a bunch, and I took a lot of time, set the camera up, would take a couple pictures, and then I'd just stand there and listen to the peepers, and the great blue heron flew through, and the ducks, and the light and the clouds were changing very rapidly. It was really cool, and I just would watch, and then I would take a couple more pictures, and then I would watch, and I really liked that.
I just have trouble. I feel like it's really difficult to separate, like, especially since what you do for work. It's really difficult to separate, like, the work from the relaxing. And if you're constantly feeling like you're working, then when do you ever feel like you're just doing this for the fun of it?
But what if I love my job?
It's still your job. There will be a point when you will feel like now you haven't even touched that 50 because you've reviewed so much gear that you're pretty burned out about.
I didn't say that.
Gear.
No, don't go that far.
But that's what it is.
I was busy.
It's not burnout on an extreme level, and I think everybody experiences burnout in their careers at some point.
I'm really nervous about using the word burnout when I'm like 3 weeks into my new life. I'm retiring early.
Full time. No, but burnout is not a constant thing. Just as success is not a constant thing. Like you burn out, that's why people take vacations, because they get burned out. They go on vacation, they reset.
I want to take vacations to make new pictures and to bring you all new, exciting information.
That's not vacation though, that's work.
But I love my job. That's
great, but I just think you need to be better about separating. This is not a conversation we should be having right now.
Will you be our therapist? No, just kidding.
Moving on.
Moving on.
So let's start our discussion.
Okay. Short discussion today, but I wanted to, you know, we have this wood background, which also smells nice.
It does.
Hemlock. It's hemlock. you know, why did we put this back here? But to make a pleasing background behind us without anything distracting, like a freaking crooked image. Some of you know what I'm talking about. But I wanted to bring it back to photography and say, you took a quick snap portrait of me the other day against this. You take portraits of people at the wedding, bride and groom, obviously, and also you also do both of them. When you have time and choice of locations, what are you looking for in a background before you take a portrait?
Well, the first thing that I look for when I'm scouting for pictures is light. I just want to make sure, like, light takes over everything. So if the light's really crappy, then the background, it doesn't matter what the background looks like. But then I do move on to background, and usually what I look for is repetitive patterns. Repetitive in such a way that they are not distracting and leading the eye away from the portraits, from the actual people in them, but that I heard this, I was listening to this podcast on our way to the wedding last weekend, and they were talking about our brains looking for patterns and like repetitive patterns and just patterns in general to try to make sense of the world. And I feel like in the way that we experience a photograph, especially a photograph of people, of like a big group of people or family portraits, you don't really want to have lots of really distracting elements or unique elements because you're not trying to showcase the scene, you're trying to showcase the people. So I feel like repetitive backgrounds or repetitive patterns in a background like this it becomes, your eye gets used to it because it's all the same. And then the really interesting part of the image becomes the faces and the people and what they're wearing, whatever. So that's why I kind of look for like wood patterns or brick patterns, but also I like to, whenever possible, I like to soften the background so that it's also not super gritty and super sharp, because I don't want that in my pictures, because then it loses dimension, and then
and you soften it through shooting at a shallow depth of field,
right?
So that your subject is isolated from the background.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I look for in terms of backgrounds when I'm doing family portraits. When I'm doing portraits of the bride and groom, I will do a picture on it, like kind of like a boring background, or not boring, but just repetitive pattern. And then we'll try to showcase more of the space, because they will want to remember where they got married and what it looked like. So it's important to show that as well. But for the family portraits, I think that the main thing is that there's good light on their faces, that the background is clean and not distracting. And yeah, that's
good. Okay. Super short discussion. Now,
moving on to reader questions.
Great. So we've got a couple left over from the other week. We had such good questions last week. I think we have some good ones. They're part of that whole thread I asked. Mark's going to lead us off. Mark Friedman. I don't think I asked this last time. Recommended strategies for dealing with insufficient light when using kit zooms on crop sensor cameras when flash is not an option. For example, assuming it will be fixed later in Lightroom, would you underexpose or use a high ISO? Or maybe shoot wide and crop later? So basically, we've kind of talked about this before.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the post where you asked, so that I can read along with you.
You want me to send it to you? I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And everybody will watch while I send it to you.
It to me.
Okay.
Got it.
So.
And you all heard that.
I don't think they did.
Oh, okay, never mind. All right, which one? Who are Mark Friedman?
Yep. So basically, I can start to answer this question. I don't need to wait for you.
Do it.
You are very limited. When you zoom a bunch on a kit lens, doesn't matter which one, it's got that variable aperture. As you zoom, that aperture, maximum aperture available to you, closes down, lets in less light. How can you deal with that? And if you can't use flash, go ahead and raise that ISO and expose it properly. And a properly exposed image is going to be better able to hide the noise, to look good, than underexposing and bringing that up in Lightroom.
Definitely, yeah.
I've accidentally shot underexposed images at higher ISOs, and then we have to bring them up a little bit to make them look good, and they get noisy so fast. So go ahead and shoot at those higher ISOs. properly exposed, and in Lightroom, use a little bit of noise reduction, and you can be quite surprised. Folks, don't look at your images at 100% when it's at the higher ISOs. It's going to look noisy. Our lovely 5D Mark III cameras, they look noisy. But at normal viewing in prints, 8x10, 11x14.
Yeah, unless it's really, really crazy.
Really, really crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, well, what I'm saying is you zoom in at those higher ISOs, 3200, and it's going to look really noisy. But if it's properly exposed, you zoom out, it really isn't bad. It isn't. And then, should you shoot a little bit wider and crop in? I don't, because that'll give you a little bit better aperture, because as you zoom, that aperture closes down.
No, I would push your ISO first as far as you can, and then maybe, I mean, you would have to zoom out quite a bit more in order to get like a third of a stop extra. Right, so I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And Mark, get a prime. I'm working on a video, 5 reasons why you should own a prime. I have an older one of 1 reason why you should own a prime, but I got 5 easy good ones, and that certainly is one of them. Good. Kevin wants to know a good monitor to use for editing. I'm going to put IPS display is what you want. I've been looking at a couple different ones. I've got a cheapish one right now, and when I'm critically editing, I use the Retina display on this MacBook. But I'll put a list of a couple down below. Jamie Smith asks if we've heard or seen any of the 70D soft focus issues on the Canon 6D.
I feel like this question was asked last week too.
I don't think I answered it. Was it? Okay.
So the answer is no, right?
The answer is no. I think there were some issues surrounding the 6D early on, but nothing consistently that has stuck around.
Are these?
What?
Are we sure these are? No, this is from June 19th.
Yeah, it is when I asked, but we didn't answer all of them.
Oh.
Tim wants to know. I'm just going by...
That's why.
I'm trying to go by memory of what we asked and what we didn't, because I should have put a little note here that I answered. Tim wants to know, what are the best and worst parts of doing photography for a living? Well, I think we talked a little bit about it just now, is some of that excitement of like new gear wears off a little bit. But I should say that's for everybody. It's hard on your body. It can be. And then you come home and you edit and edit, edit. That's the worst part. Another thing that I think is a bad part is this perception, especially among wedding photographies, is it's so expensive. All you do is come and shoot for like 8 hours and then you're done.
But that's not really a worst part. That's just a misconception, I think.
Okay.
I think one of the most challenging, I wouldn't say worst, but most challenging parts of photography or doing photography for a living is finding work-life balance. I think that that's something that I struggle with, that you really struggle with, that everybody struggles with, because you are working from home, you're working weird hours, and there's no set, like nobody's, you know, managing you, nobody's setting a schedule for you, so it is nice to set your own hours, but it's also really challenging. So for me, what happens is that I feel like I work every day because I don't take, it's really hard to take a day off because you always feel like you have to be working on something and constantly feel like you're trying to play catch up, and especially just in the summer, not so much in the winter. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for me. The best part about it is honestly the people that I get to work with. We photographed some really, really just great weddings in the past few months, few weeks, and it's just so great to, you know, to like make connections with people and to see how they are. And like for me, the last couple of weddings, the most, I don't know, I feel like I'm totally sappy about this stuff, but like the relationship of the dads with their daughters, it's just been like the dads, like for the last the last few weddings we photographed, the dads have been just like really emotional and just like so sweet with their daughters, and just seeing that relationship, you know, in person, being able to photograph it, it's just been really special. Mm-hmm. So I think people are probably the best part, and being able to work with them.
Yep. Just add, you know, I think it's difficult to answer this question in some ways to separate the running the business of photography from actually doing photography.
Right.
But I'll echo that, you know, being able to be part, specifically wedding photography, because that is what we mostly do, but be able to be part of these people's special moments is special, and it's really neat. And just kind of getting to meet different people. Like, it was last year now that I shot a graduation ceremony for a local school that it's a home for boys and girls that don't have good homes. Just a group of the sweetest people, adults and kids, all together. And it was, you know, it wasn't a wedding, but it was really neat to see that. And so to meet those people as well. I like meeting the people. And then the other part is, you know, being able to do what I love. I love photography. It's a lot of fun to take pictures, to try to take pictures. And so for that to be what I do now as a source of my income is cool.
Yeah.
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 Good.
Great.
Pixel peeping. You know, well, that's getting into this like review. I'm not a fan of pixel peeping. I need to do it for you all. And I do it to satisfy my own curiosity sometimes, but yeah. Okay.
I guess I will add one more to that. Just what's that word, like self-hatred or just self-loathing?
Self-loathing?
Of your own work.
Of your own work.
Yeah, there is a lot of that, and that's really hard to deal with as well, because there's constant comparison of like who's doing what, and are they better than you or are they worse than you? And
I'll have to flash back to my therapy session.
Either way, it's just...
Do we need to do a therapy session for you?
No, I'm good. I mean, that's something that I just constantly think about. And,
it's hard.
And
right.
struggle with, and not to like a very huge extent, because I try to manage it, but it's there. Some days it's worse than others.
Constantly comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
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 Yep. That's true.
Okay.
Because it's such a visual, yes. You know, when you work in the, you know, finance, well, fine, no, never mind.
There's always competition.
Rat holes. Okay. Carl asks, filters for vibrant, exploding sunset, sunrise skies. Which one of many are good and how to use them? Using to try and avoid PP. Post-processing? Photoshop?
I would say, I don't know. I mean, I know you're going to suggest the circular polarizer filter.
They don't help a ton with sunsets
really?
and sunrises.
So,
no. The polarizer has the maximum effect when it is 90 degrees to the sun, saturates the colors more. Pointed right at or away from the sun, it has much less effect. It will still help some to kind of like saturate the image, but not much.
Okay. Well, my only advice would be to just, play around with the picture and post-processing.
He wants to avoid that.
Well, do you have a better answer?
Well, you know, there are a lot of filters out there. Circular polarizer is the only one that really can't be recreated in post-processing. You know, it does stuff to the picture that you cannot redo. But as I said, it doesn't really help here. You can throw on a red filter or orange. I don't love that because then immediately you are stuck in that world, and I think you give yourself, you can recreate those results just as good, if not better, and dial them in and out in Photoshop and Lightroom.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I guess this is kind of a controversial thing to say, or not controversial.
Oh, let's do it. Controversy.
Or just
Episode 24.
Take pictures of something else other than sunsets. I feel like that's just so overdone.
Yeah.
I know that if it's like, I mean, they're so beautiful, but
no.
How many more pictures of sunsets do we need as a collective? Like,
it brings us back to that question of, you know, you are making the picture,
right.
You're sharing it with your friends. I know, I understand, Carl. I will say that if you want to get serious and fancy, a graduated neutral density filter system is going to be a way to go.
Yeah.
When you're shooting these sunsets and sunrises, what you have is very bright sky, very dark land. And to balance that, you get one of these filters that is like those bifocal glasses. Is that a good example? Anyway, it is graduated, very dark at the top and then slowly brighter and brighter. You put that down over the camera lens, it acts as sunglasses for the sky portion and lets lots of light through for the land portion to kind of balance that image out. But they you know, they're expensive. The good ones are expensive, and a lot of times you got this kind of square system that you're sliding plates into, and you got to line it all up, and that's going to be a lot more work than post-processing.
Yep.
A little Lightroom post-processing, I think, is the way to go.
So we have time for one more question?
We do. Maybe. We answered all of the other ones. Those were just a couple. Re-answered Rogers. Did we talk about Magic Lantern for the 6D?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Paul wants to know if we've looked in... I said that too. I think we're done for this week.
Sweet. Okay. So nothing else other than our pick of the week?
Yes. You know what next week I want to do? I'm going to put a note right now. I want to go back, and we've had some great comments on previous 2 podcasts, people's answers to questions I've put out there. I want to share those. So we'll definitely make that part of next week, including your answer about sunsets, sunrises. Should you be photographing them?
And then
or
just
does the
anything
world
in
have too much? The Grand Canyon, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which we might see in October. Good?
Good.
Good. And that wraps up episode 24 of the Mish Mash podcast. Also, let me know. I had one person comment and say they'd like an audio-only version, and I certainly understand that. There are certain podcasts that I don't have time to listen to the whole thing or sit and watch a whole video. But when I'm driving, I listen to it, and not all of this is so visual, so I think it could work. Let me know if a couple of you out there would like that, and it's not hard to do, to make. So maybe I'll start doing that.
Great. Thanks
so much for watching our Flickr pictures of the week, and we have a photo assignment going on right now. Motion. Look right down below in the show notes. There is a link to the blog post with more information. A great example shot from Roy is one of the examples, but there are lots more ways to show motion, just not flowing water. Bye-bye. All right, we're recording on audio. Let's start camera 1. Let's start camera 2. So I got all 3 cameras working, and I'm going to... 2. Oh, right, 2. I can't count very well today. I'm going to snap my fingers.
Or clap. You can clap.
Or clap. Or get one of those clappers. But we're not that pro. And that gives me easy waveforms to see to match up. That's really a backup solution, though, in software. Pluralize should do a good job of syncing everything up. But it's nice to have those quick waveforms and see those 3 peaks, as you can see right there, if I did it all right. So I think we're ready. You ready?
Yep, I can't believe.
So I shot this podcast with just 2 cameras, as you heard me mention, and just real quick show you how we can sync all of that up. Here is the first segment of camera 1, and I'm just going to drag that in Final Cut Pro down to the timeline. Second segment, or sorry, camera 2. So we're just going to drag that down to the timeline. And notice right away you can see these waveforms where I'm snapping. We're talking about a clapper. And we can go and get the audio. I think it's actually 19 is the example. There it is. So, and I can line this up, and now you can eyeball it with just 2 cameras and an audio track. It's really not too bad. I'm just zooming in, Control plus key, oops, and now I will pick my main track, there it is, and put the line right against that first snap, and I'll move camera 2. I see, it wants to jump. Sometimes it wants to jump. And sometimes it doesn't. Let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, you can see that's very close. Let's listen to it. It's in sync. Now, if it was a more complicated setup with a lot more going on, what I would do is I come over here, File, export this project to XML. We got Wood was the title. I've already done this to make sure everything was working properly, but we got Wood demo, let's call it. Save that file. I jump over here to Pluralize, and let's new project from Final Cut Pro. We got Wood demo. Open it up. It brings over the lines, camera 1, camera 2, and the audio, prepares the media, in this case it's real short, and we just hit the synchronize button. And that's it. It did it. And we can check right here if we want. Photo Mishmash, episode 24, take 32! Just like that. Pretty straightforward, and you just have to make sure as you're cutting further down the line, you can see in my color corrected and longer one here. It's nice. I don't know, can you be photobombed in your own podcast? I think Christina managed to do that. You can see each of the segments and just go in and we'll trim across all of them to make sure everything stays in sync. So just a quick look. I hope to do more of this soon, kind of behind the scenes, and a little bit more of Final Cut Pro too, because video editing can be a lot of fun when everything's working right. When things start to get out of sync though, I did that last week. I was editing the podcast for about 4 hours. It's not an exaggeration, 4 hours longer than I had expected because I had had some synchronization issues. But yeah, as always, thanks so much for watching.
So yeah, let's move on to our next segment, news.
We've moved on to the next segment.
Oh, okay.
Just saying, because it's a big black screen that says news. So then just say it.
Okay. News.
Yep.
Okay, let me try it.
No, we're doing that.
No.
You did it. We don't have time for another take. We got to go to class. Let's go.
Okay. News. That was sufficiently awkward. Okay.
You want to do it one more time?
Okay. News. I mean, it's weird. News.
One more time. Just relax.